Over 119 million Nintendo Game Boys sold, and millions more games went along with it. But of all those games, are there any that you should be tracking down on your next game hunt? Well, keep watching to find out. Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Technohead. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're starting the next video in my series, counting down the most valuable video games from the 90s and early 2000s. In the last video, we started the show with a showstopper. We took a look at the Nintendo Entertainment System. And in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at its handheld successor, the Nintendo Game Boy. I'm sure anybody who collects video games is aware of the Nintendo Game Boy and its successor units, the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, the DS. Even the Switch has a little bit of DNA from the original Game Boy, which started Nintendo's dominance in the handheld gaming world. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the prices of Nintendo Game Boy games from the website of GameDude, a local Los Angeles video game retailer, as they were listed in 2004 on the Wayback Machine. We're going to adjust those prices for inflation, and then we're going to compare them to the current prices for Nintendo Game Boy games on GameDude's website. Now, GameDude doesn't specify whether or not these are in-box or loose carts. In my experience, most of the carts at GameDude are loose, so that's my assumption there. But we're just going to be comparing like to like. So whatever GameDude said they were selling something for in 2004 versus what they're selling it for now. Then we're going to take those prices and find out which games had the largest increase in value over the past 20 years. I'll also be including the rarity score of each game from rarityguide.com, and that way we can determine whether or not rarity has anything to do with the prices of these games now in 2024. So what are we waiting for? Let's get going. Let's count down the top 25 most valuable Nintendo Game Boy games. Starting out the list is Tailgater. Tailgater is a fun little platform featuring an alligator who's jumping around, smacking people with his tail. There's going to be several games at the top of the list that all have similar pricing, and Tailgater is the first of them. It was $12 back in 2004 and $59 today in 2024, which is a 392% increase in value for a game that's not especially rare at a 23 on rarityguide.com. And then we have Stop That Roach, a game that's considerably more rare than the last game with an 84 on Rarity Guide. Stop That Roach also went for $12 back in 2004, and a copy today in 2024 would also cost you $59, which is a 392% increase in value. Stop That Roach is kind of a twist on the sort of box sliding puzzle games that were popular on handhelds back in the day. And then we have the infamous fighting game featuring the basketball player Shaq Fu. Shaq Fu is not especially rare. It's only $20, it's only a 20 rarity on rarityguide.com. It was $12 back in 2004, but a copy today at GameDude would cost you $59, and that is a 392% increase in value over time for Shaq Fu. That's followed up by one of the many overhead RPG style games that's going to be on this list. This is Rolan's Curse 2. Like all the previous games, Rolan's Curse was going for about $12 at GameDude in 2004. But if you wanted to pick up a copy today, you'd be shelling out $59 for Rolan's Curse 2. That's a 392% increase in value for a game that's right in the middle on Rarity Guide with a 53. Then we've got another sequel, Ninja Boy 2. Ninja Boy 2 is another overhead RPG style game. Ninja Boy 2 has some combat that does go into side-scrolling mode eventually, but the kind of overhead view is kind of a typical RPG style. Like the rest of these games, it was $12 back then and $59 today, which makes it a 392% increase in value for a game that has a 57 rarity. Then we have Goemon, the Legend of Mystical Ninja. Goemon, The Legend of Mystical Ninja, is a $12 game back in 2004, and it goes for about $59 today, which makes it a 392% increase in value. This game is not especially rare. It's a 27 on the rarity guide. So far we've been seeing rarity that's kind of all over the place for games with very similar prices. Then we've got Aerostar. Aerostar is a overhead shooting game for the Game Boy here, and it's the last one in the list here that has this price range, where it started at 12 and is now sitting at 59. It has a rarity of 56 on rarityguide.com, but this is a good little shooter game for the Game Boy. I'd say this is one to check out if you're interested in the system. Then after that, we have an extremely rare game, or at least one that I don't see very frequently. This is Castlevania Legends, which has a rarity of 76. This game was going for $32 back in 2004, so we're kind of making a jump here in prices. And today in 2024, if you wanted to get a copy, it would cost you $179, which is a 459% increase in value for Castlevania Legends. That's followed up by The Legend of River King. This is a fishing game RPG, I guess. Has a rarity of 50 or so on Rarity Guide. Back in 2004, this was going for $12, which is a familiar price you might recall. However, unlike some of the previous games, if you wanted to pick up a copy today, it'd be $69, which gives us a 475% increase in value over time. That's followed up by F1 Pole Position, and like the name implies, this is basically like the classic arcade game Pole Position. This is a relatively rare game at a 51 on Rarity Guide, and it was $15 back in 2004, but today if you wanted to pick up a copy of F1 Pole Position, you'd have to spend $89, which is a 493% increase in value. Then we have a tie-in game to the film Darkman. This is a game that has a rarity of 48. Darkman was selling for about $15 back in 2004, but if you wanted to pick up a copy of this licensed side-scrolling beat-em-up, you'd have to spend $89 today, and that is a 493% increase in value over time. Then we've got the Blue Bomber coming in at number 14. This is Mega Man 5. Mega Man 5 is a very rare game for the Game Boy. It has an 86 on Rarity Guide. Back in 2004, this was going for about $32. But if you wanted to pick up a copy of Mega Man 5 today, you'd have to spend $199 at Game Dude. And that's a 521% increase in value over time for Mega Man 5. Then we've got one that showed up on the NES list last week. This is Snow Bros, but this is Snow Bros Jr. for the Game Boy. Snow Bros is a pretty good translation of the game that we saw on NES for the handheld system. It was $12 back in 2004, but today it's going for $89, which is a 642% increase in value. After that, we've got another translation of a famous NES game. This is Blaster Master Boy. Blaster Master Boy has a rarity guide of 43%. It's kind of got Bomberman style gameplay. It was $15 back in 2004, but in 2024, if you wanted to pick up a copy of Blaster Master Boy, you'd have to spend $119, which is a 693% increase in value over time. That's followed up by a THQ game, my former employer, THQ. This is the pretty risable game, Wayne's World, which was $12 back in 2004, which even that's a little high to pay for this game. But today in 2024, if you wanted a copy of Wayne's World, you'd have to shell out $99. That's a 725% increase in value for Wayne's World. After that, we've got Cool Ball. cool ball. You can see in the gameplay here, I was kind of bouncing around. I couldn't quite figure out what the gameplay was supposed to be about, but this is a game that was $12 back in 2004, and today, if you wanted to pick up a copy of Cool Ball, you'd have to spend $99, which is a 725% increase in value for a game that is not listed on Rarity.com. Then we've got Great Greed, another of the sort of overhead RPG games that are appearing on this list. Great Greed was going for about $12 back in 2004. It's a medium rarity with a 62, but today, if you wanted to pick up a copy of Great Greed, you'd have to spend $119, which is an 892% increase in value over the last 20 years. Then we've got Avenging Spirit, which is a fun game. It's got some sort of interesting gameplay where you kind of possess people, and then you're kind of walking around in sort of a old-timey city. This game was a lot of fun to play while I was capturing, so it's definitely recommended. It was $12 back in 2004, but today in 2024, if you wanted to buy a copy of Avenging Spirit, you'd be spending $119. Then we've got Sword of Hope, a more traditional style PC RPG on the Game Boy here, Sword of Hope. This game has a 56 on Rarity Guide, and it was selling for $12 back in 2004. However, today, if you wanted to pick up a copy of Sword of Hope, you'd have to spend $129, which is a 975% increase in value. Then we've got Sumo Fighter, which is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game featuring a sumo wrestler. Sumo Fighter is a rarity of 59 on Rarity Guide. It was going for $12 back in 2004, but that's gone up considerably. If you wanted to get a copy of Sumo Fighter today, you'd have to spend $149, which is a 1,142% increase in value. Then we've got another fishing game. This is Fish Dude. Fish Dude has a rarity of 74 on Rarity Guide. 20 years ago, you could pick up a copy of Fish Dude for $15 at Game Dude. But today, if you wanted to get a copy of this game, you'd have to shell out $199. And that is a 1,227% increase in value over time. At number 4, we've got Night Quest. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but it's an overhead RPG style game. This game was going for $12 back in 2004, but today in 2024, if you wanted to pick up a copy of Night Quest, you'd have to spend $199, and that is a 1,558% increase in value over time. Then we've got a fun spin-off from the Castlevania series. This is Kid Dracula. Kid Dracula is a rarity of 68 on Rarity Guide. Like a lot of the other games on this list, this was going for only about $12 back in 2004, but today it's gone up a lot. If you want to get a copy of Kid Dracula today, you'd have to spend $199, and that is a 1,558% increase in value for Kid Dracula. At number 2, we've got Spud's Adventure, an RPG game featuring a potato. That sounds like a lot of fun. This potato-based RPG has a rarity of 66, and it was going for $12 back in 2004, but in 2024, the price has gone up considerably to $249. That's a 1,975% increase in value. And at number 1, inexplicably 2 potato games in a row, we have Amazing Tater. Amazing Tater has a rarity of 80. Back in the day, in 2004, it was going for $12, like many of the other games. But if you had picked up a copy for $12 back in the day, you'd be happy, because today it's going for $499, which is a 4,058% increase in value for Amazing Tater. And there you have it, the top 25 most valuable Game Boy games. Was there anything on the list that surprised you? I know for me, I thought it was interesting that there were a few games on this list that also appeared on the Nintendo Entertainment System list, which might indicate that these were games that were released later in the Game Boy's life or just didn't have as big of a print run. Coming up next in the series, we're going to be taking a look at my favorite game console, the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis was a fantastic console with some awesome games. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to smash that subscribe button so you'll be notified when the video comes out. And as long as you're poking around pressing buttons, you might as well press the like button too, because it really helps out the channel and I appreciate it. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching this episode. I had a lot of fun counting down all these fantastic handheld games on the Nintendo Game Boy. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time for the Sega Genesis episode. Until then, this is Technohead, signing off.
We have guidance internal. 10, 9, 8, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running, commit, liftoff. We are so sorry. 11:22.